State of prediction markets in 2026. If you want the most honest answer to what happens next, you don't look at X, you don't look at polls, and you definitely don't look at the headlines. In 2026, more and more people are starting to look at prediction markets because prediction markets are doing something very different from traditional media or social platforms. They're not asking people what they feel will happen. They're asking people to put in money behind what they believe will happen. And that difference is quietly turning prediction markets into one of the most important information tools of this decade. At their core, prediction markets are simple. You trade on an outcome of future event, an election result, an inflation print, a policy decision, or a sports outcome. Each contract trades between $0 and $1. If the event happens, the contract settles at $1. If it doesn't, it settles at $0. So if you see a contract trading at 65 cents, that's not just hype. That's the market roughly saying that there's 65% chance that that event happens. It's probability expressed through price. That's why prediction markets often feel sharper than polls or pundits, because being wrong costs money. The idea itself isn't new. People were wagering on elections in the 19th century. The first modern experience showed up in an academic setting decades ago, where researchers discovered that markets with real money on the line often outperformed professional forecasts. But for most of their history, prediction markets were constrained. They were small, heavily regulated, and often limited to niche users. Crypto changed that. Decentralization removed gatekeepers. Anyone could participate. Liquidity could move globally, and settlement could happen transparently on-chain. But it wasn't until 2024 or 2025 that prediction markets truly broke into the mainstream. 2025 was the breakout year. Trading volumes exploded. High-profile events pulled in massive liquidity, and prediction markets started outperforming traditional forecasting methods in very public ways. Elections were the obvious catalyst, but they weren't the only one. Markets on inflation, interest rates, geopolitical risk, tech adoption, and macro events all grew rapidly. By the end of 2025, prediction markets were processing volumes that rivaled and, in some cases, exceeded major DeFi protocols. At that point, it became clear. It wasn't just gambling with a better UX. This was a new kind of information layer. The real inflection point heading into 2026 wasn't just volume. Prediction market data started showing up in places people already trusted and used: search engines, finance dashboards, productivity tools. Instead of being something you had to seek out, probabilities started being presented directly alongside traditional data. And once that happens, psychology changes. Prediction markets stopped feeling like a crypto product and started feeling like infrastructure. As the structure matured, a clear split started to form. On one side are regulated prediction market. These platforms operate within legal frameworks, fight regulatory battles, and focus on legitimacy, institutions, and mainstream adoption. Their goal isn't just growth, it's permanence. On the other side are crypto-native, permissionless markets. They move faster, list more events, attract global liquidity instantly. But they also face harder questions around trust, settlement disputes, insider trading, and governance. In 2026, both models coexist, and both have trade-offs. Regulated platforms gain credibility and distribution, but move slower. Permissionless platforms innovate quickly, but are tested constantly by edge cases and controversy. This tension defines the sector right now, and those controversies are real. As prediction markets scale, the stakes get higher, literally. Disputes over how events are defined, arguments over settlement rules, concerns about insider trading or non-public information, fears that wealthy participants can influence narratives by moving odds. These aren't theoretical problems anymore, they're stress tests. Because prediction markets only work if the users trust two things, and that outcomes would be resolved honestly. Without that honesty, the probability signs break. And 2026 is the year the sector is being forced to prove that it can handle that responsibility. Despite the friction, adoption continues. One of the biggest shifts has been the entrance of large consumer platforms into the space. When prediction markets are integrated directly into apps people already use for trading, investing, or managing money, the barrier to entry collapses. Users don't think of it as a new category, they think of it as another market. That's how behaviors scale. And once millions of users are interacting with probabilities daily, even casually, prediction markets stop being niche. They become habit. So, What are prediction markets becoming in 2026? They're evolving into three overlapping roles. First, they're becoming a media signal. Odds themselves become news. People cite probabilities instead of opinions. Second, they're becoming a hedging tool. Institutions use them to offset policy risk, regulatory uncertainty, and macro exposure, sometimes more directly than traditional derivatives allow. And third, becoming a knowledge layer for the internet, a way to aggregate dispersed information into a single, continuously updated signal. Not perfect truth, but often the best real-time estimate available. This does not mean prediction markets are guaranteed to succeed. 2026 is not about endless expansion, it's about consolidation. The platforms that survive will be the ones that can scale liquidity without turning into a casino, resolve outcomes without constant controversy, and operate in a world where regulators, institutions, and mainstream users are watching closely. They won't necessarily fail spectacularly, they'll just lose relevance. So, what's the real state of prediction markets in 2026? They're no longer an experiment, they're no longer a curiosity, and they're no longer just betting with extra steps. They are a serious attempt to turn uncertainty into something tradable, measurable, and actionable. The growth is real. The value is clear, and the risks are finally being confronted, because once markets start being used to answer real questions about elections, economies, and global decisions, accuracy stops being a feature. It becomes the product. And in a world drowning in noise, that might be the most valuable thing of all. That's a wrap for today. If you enjoyed this video, do hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and also push on that notification bell for future updates from our Crypto Talk. I'll catch you up in the next video. Till then, bye-bye.